final, 3-2, and with the cup in the building, Florida is eager to win it, of course, in front of their fans. As for the Oilers, a win tonight, and they will force a Game 7 back in Edmonton Friday night. And that is the world this hour. For news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. For CBC News, I'm Joe Cummings.
Turning now to take a look at the weather for Kenora, Dryden, Fort Frances, and Sioux Lookout areas. Today, a mix of sun and cloud with a 40 to 60% chance of some showers this afternoon and a risk of a thunderstorm. Local smoke drifting into the region as well. Temperature highs today between 21 and 25 degrees. Humidex ranging between 25 and 28 degrees. Tonight,
行驶800米后，在交叉路口继续向右。
between 11 and 14 degrees.
Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and you're listening to The Current. It's convocation season, and across this country, students in caps and gowns sit patiently in college and university halls listening.
在交叉路口继续向右。
And the question, what's next, is at the top of everyone's mind. This year, University of Toronto President Merrick Gertler is also contemplating his future. After 12 years at the helm of this country's biggest institution of higher learning, he's stepping down. He has led the university through transformative and tumultuous times, through debates over freedom of expression and the right to protest, and through an era when universities face existential questions about their role in society and the purpose of higher education itself. Merrick Gertler is with me in studio now. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
This is, I was saying to you as you came in, one of my favorite times of the year, because I go through your campus every day on the way home, and I see hundreds and hundreds of parents and students who are very proud, maybe kind of embarrassed by the pride of their parents in this moment. What is it like for you? What's the best thing about this moment for you?
Yeah, it is so great. It's wonderful to see the joy, the pride that families have in the achievements of their children. And it's also just a reminder of the role that an institution like the University of Toronto plays, not just in the city of Toronto, but in the country, as a kind of gateway of opportunity for so many aspiring new Canadians and Canadians who've been here a while. We really are creating an opportunity by educating so many young people, and it means so much to them. On my way here this morning, my taxi driver, who came from Ethiopia 40 years ago, was proudly telling me that his daughter's in the 3rd year of science program at our Scarborough campus, and he's just bursting with pride to sort of describe and imagine what her future might be like, and obviously he has high hopes for her.
So what's it like for you, knowing that this is the last time that you're going to be on the stage? In that, I mean, it's a big moment when the student walks across the stage.
It is indeed, and I speak to every one of them, call them by name, to make sure that they know that their achievements are being recognized, not just by their families, but by the people who lead the institution as well. Now, that's something I will really miss, because it is just such a tangible expression of the importance of what we do. This is why we are here, ultimately, to educate students, to educate future citizens.
Those students are being launched into a world that is not particularly receptive to them. It's really hard for graduates to find employment right now. How do you see that? And how do you see the role of the university in this moment?
So it is hard. I mean, the labor market for the graduating cohort is pretty depressing at the moment. Hopefully that will be short-lived, and that once Canada can resolve some of its macroeconomic challenges, and particularly the dispute with our neighbors to the south.
But it goes beyond that. I mean, people wonder whether the jobs that they perhaps went to school thinking that they would end up in are going to exist because of things like artificial intelligence.
It's absolutely true. And something that we've been trying to reckon with in terms of how we educate our students. So artificial intelligence is, of course, a huge game changer across so many different occupations, so many different fields. When ChatGPT 4 broke a couple of years ago, everyone's first impulse was to worry about academic misconduct. Cheating, if you want to call it that. But we've changed our whole view on it, recognizing that the world of work is changing, and that whatever field you work in, you're going to have to find a way to use those tools, use them responsibly, use them productively and effectively, use them ethically. And so we are now integrating this kind of work into the way that we teach, making sure that when our students graduate, they are fully equipped to use these kinds of tools properly.
Do you think the universities need to rethink how they prepare their students for this world? Maybe, and AI is part of that,
Yeah.
but that, I mean, whether it's more work experience, co-op programs,
Sure.
what have you, so that those students are better prepared for
Yeah.
the real world, as he said.
For sure. And you know, when I started this gig 12 years ago, one of my highest priorities was to inspire the university to reimagine education, particularly undergraduate education, although frankly there's been as many changes at the graduate level as well. And so what we've seen since then are a number of big trends. We've just been talking about AI, and clearly that wasn't really on the radar in the same way as it is now 12 years ago. But what was already evident was a tremendous interest in experiential learning, a recognition both by students and by employers that giving our students an opportunity to blend in-class learning with learning in the community, learning in the workplace, would be such a good thing, both for them by giving them real-world experience, and also for employers who would have a chance to try students out as interns, but also when they were looking to hire students, they would be drawn to those students who have already got some work experience under their belt. So we've done a variety of co-op programs. Our Scarborough campus has had those in place for a long time. We've had professional experience here in our Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, which is now spreading to arts and science and elsewhere. A lot of service learning in courses where students work with community groups on applied problems. Very, very popular. And then, of course, summer internships. Another trend, though, that we've noticed and frankly we've really encouraged has been to encourage more of our students to have an international experience. Canadian students have been unusually reluctant to travel and study abroad compared to students in Europe or students in the US. So this is something that we worked on as well.
What do you think, and maybe it goes to that question of what those students are prepared with and for when they leave university and go into that world. What do you think the value of a university degree is right now? And I ask as a liberal arts grad,
Right.
who, I mean, I have an English degree. What is that going to do?
Yeah.
It's going to do a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Is it about, in 2025, given everything that we've talked about, is it about training people for work, or is it about the idea that you are going to go and learn
Right.
and be exposed to things that you never came across any other opportunity, and that is this little window where you can do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that we probably don't ask frequently enough, and we should. You know, my own view on this is that we are really in the game, in the business of teaching people how to think, teaching people how to solve problems, giving people a broad foundation of background and knowledge and understanding that will serve them well through a career in which we know that they will be having to reinvent themselves continuously over time.
Is that a luxury in 2025 when people worry about the existence of liberal arts and say, you know what, in the real world, you don't have time to do that?
Right. You know, it is often viewed that way. I would say it's a necessity. That if we're going to educate future citizens who are successful in the real world, we have to give them that kind of resilience, that kind of ability to reinvent themselves over time. And, you know, when you talk to employers, they often point to the so-called soft skills that they are looking for, which is, again, problem solving, critical thinking, the ability to work well in teams, with you know, complementary colleagues who are able to support and really bring different skills to the solution that they're looking for. These kinds of things that indeed will set students up for a lifetime of success. So I don't think of it as a luxury at all, but indeed as a necessity. You know, the other thing, when you ask about the value of a university degree, something that we've really forgotten is that, you know, there's actually a really convincing literature that demonstrates that students with university degrees are more likely to be not just economically successful over their lifetime, they're likely to be healthier, happier, more engaged civic citizens, more likely to vote, less likely to commit crimes. You know, these are the kinds of social outcomes that are so important and are often overlooked when we talk about the value of universities. But I think it is time for us to go back to some of those foundational ideas as we think about how we support universities going forward.
What do you make as somebody who is leading a huge institution here of what's going on in the United States, where you have research funding that's been slashed, you have international students that are being picked up and deported, you have academics worrying about the fact that they could be targeted for doing work that doesn't fit the agenda of the government. You must know a number of the people who lead those institutions in the United States. What goes through your mind?
Yeah, I know quite a few of them because the University of Toronto is one of two foreign members of the Association of American Universities. The other one is McGill, and we were both admitted in 1926. So we have the privilege of joining our American colleagues at typically about 65 or so top universities from the U.S. meeting twice a year in Washington, D.C. So yes, I do know them, and I can tell you that they have experienced one shockwave after another after another.
Could you ever imagine something like this happening?
Here in Canada?
Or in the United States?
Well, certainly it seemed beyond the pale. And we had an earlier Trump administration where there were certainly some fairly turbulent things that happened, but nothing by comparison to what we've seen in the last 18 months or so.
What is most alarming to you about it?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that are most alarming. First of all, the weaponization of research funding in order to get university administrations to do the bidding of a particular government administration. The consequences of that are profound, not just domestically, where an institution like Harvard could see its research budget slashed by half, where Johns Hopkins has sustained over $800 million cut to research related to USAID and international development work. If you think about the impact of that on the advancement of knowledge, the advancement of science, it is truly profound. But the impact also goes beyond the U.S. because all of those leading institutions work in partnership with great Canadian universities, great British universities, and other great universities around the world. And when you see this happening to your partner, you know that it's going to have consequences for you. It's going to reduce the rate at which one can make progress. It's going to reduce the number of partners that you can work with. At the same time, not surprisingly, it has generated a lot of anxiety amongst academic talent and students in the U.S. who are, frankly, looking elsewhere for opportunities, and Toronto is one of those places.
What is the opportunity? I mean, I read somewhere like $2.5 billion worth of grants in the United States have been rescinded.
Right.
You have institutions in Canada that are offering special, Queen's University offering what they're calling a special U.S. doctoral recruitment initiative.
Right.
What is the opportunity for a school like the U of T? Poaching is a strange word, but is in that moment, can you bring some of that great talent here to this country?
We already have. So you may have heard about 3 professors from Yale who have come to the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Tim Snyder, who has been on CBC a lot, Marcy Shore, another eminent European historian, and Jason Stanley.
We spoke with on the program.
Exactly,
about that, yeah.
Right. And each of them will describe different reasons why they have chosen to leave. But it's a very tangible example of the consequences of what's happening south of the border. The media coverage around the 3 Yale professors coming to U of T has been global. And not surprisingly, it has stimulated a lot of other interest. So we've had many, many inquiries, not just in history and political science and philosophy, but in all kinds of disciplines as well. If you think about health research, the National Institutes of Health has frozen funding for people working on things like vaccines and vaccine hesitancy, anything related to gender, anything related to climate change and the environment. Well, U of T announced just a couple of months ago the establishment of the Lawson Climate Institute, thanks to the generosity of Brian and Joanna Lawson and their family. Our timing was not dictated by what's happening south of the border, but in hindsight it could not have been better. Because if you imagine being a scientist at Harvard or MIT or Berkeley working on climate change, and the National Science Foundation has just said, we can't fund your research anymore, and then you see an announcement like the one that came out from U of T, you can imagine their excitement and their sense of opportunity. So there are lots of ways in which we will certainly benefit.
Let's talk about the pressure you faced here in your job. Most recently, you had to navigate the debate over the war in Gaza, accusations of anti-Semitism on campus that have gone on well before that war, the encampments. What would you have done differently in that moment? This is about a year ago.
It was about a year ago.
What would you have done differently, looking back on this?
I'm not sure that I would have done much differently.
Do you think it was a mistake not to meet with the people who were protesting on campus?
We did meet with them.
You directly?
Yes, I did.
Earlier on, there was a lot of complaints that you were not there in that moment, that you were delegating, that you weren't there meeting with the people who were taking over at the center of the campus.
They were indeed. I did meet with them early on, but senior members of my administration also did meet with them quite frequently. The president of the university just does not have that kind of time to meet with them on an almost daily basis, which was what we were engaged in. But indeed, I did meet with them.
Beyond that, you don't think that you would have done much different?
Well, look, our task was to find the right balance, and it's a delicate balance. On the one hand, we steadfastly defend and support the right of members of our community to protest, to exercise their freedom of speech and their academic freedom. On the other hand, at the same time, we also have to find a way to create an environment for teaching and learning and research and work which is free of discrimination and harassment, and where people do not feel excluded.
And did you feel that you reached that balance?
Well, I believe we did about as well as we could do. We got a lot of heat from people for not shutting the encampment down right away. And as you know, it was up and present for 2 months on our front campus, right outside my office window. There was a lot of pressure on us to, quote-unquote, shut it down, although it was never clear how we could actually do that had we chosen to do so. But, as a university, a place that needs to accommodate dissent and discussion and debate, we have a very, very high bar when it comes to freedom of expression. And we had to work very hard to protect that right. At the same time, I was also hearing from people who were very upset by the presence of that encampment in the middle of our campus, including during convocation this time last year.
It became a very personalized issue, and people directed a lot of that anger at you during convocation. I know as well, when you were sitting on stage, for example.
Absolutely true. And there were protests at my home, and members of my family were also targeted. So it was the one and only time where that has happened in 12 years, and it was indeed very, very difficult. But again, we believed in the values and the principles that were really at the core of this. The need to support debate and discussion, to say uncomfortable things, even offensive things, so long as they were expressed in a lawful way and in a way that was compliant with university policy. So again, a very, very difficult balance to find. Inside the university, of course, I heard from all kinds of different viewpoints, people who were unhappy about various things that we were or were not doing. Outside the university, and subsequent to that, I have to say that most of the commentary that I have received since then has been positive, to say, I don't know how you did it, but somehow you managed to find that right balance.
You brought in Randy Boygoda, who's a professor at the U of T. We spoke with him a number of times as a special advisor on civil discourse at the University of Toronto to promote productive and respectful dialogue on a range of issues.
Yeah.
How successful do you think that was? Is that possible on an issue like this?
It better be.
Is it happening?
It is happening.
Really?
But Matt, this is not something that you can change overnight. Consider the context. The horrific events that took place on October 7th and since then, and let's face it, there have been many of them, took place after we had experienced a global pandemic. And I believe that what has happened since then demonstrates how those two events were connected. If you think about it, we had basically 2 years in which interpersonal interaction was almost exclusively virtual. And where over that period of time, members of our community lost the ability to talk to one another about difficult issues in a civil way. Communicating through social media encouraged and enabled them to say things to one another that they would never have said to that person if they were meeting in person, face to face. And so that ability was already depleted. When you lay on top of that, of course, the very contentious and difficult events that happened post-October 7th, it was really just a very, very challenging combination. So what Randy has done has been to, through his work with a working group, try and create or rebuild that capacity for people to talk about difficult things in a productive way.
Do you think people want to talk about difficult things? There's a lot of talk in the United States about ideological diversity on campus. And I mean, it's largely focused on conservative views, saying there's not enough conservative professors, for example, on a campus. But how good of a job do you think universities are doing in introducing students to ideas that would really challenge their views, that would push their views around?
Well, so it's a great question. It's a really important question because we have to be able to do that. So what are the conditions? First of all, you want to make sure that all of those viewpoints have an opportunity to be expressed, whether from students or from faculty. Second, in the classroom, we have to make sure that our instructors have the skill set, the tools, the capability to mediate those debates, so that if you're a student sitting at the back of the class and you're feeling uncomfortable about the view that is being expressed by most of the other people in the room, you still feel comfortable in putting your hand up and making a contribution that might be contrary to what someone else says. Moreover, our faculty often bring very, very passionate and strong positions and views to these issues. And, that's completely understandable. But we have to make sure that when they conduct those conversations in the classroom, that they're not crowding out others who might have a different view. They're not imposing some kind of a chill. That they have to create that space where everybody feels comfortable expressing a view, no matter how off the beaten path or how far from the mainstream it might be.
Just in the last couple of minutes that we have, and it picks up directly on that. I said earlier that this is the time where graduating students get, inspirational words from, the guest speaker, from everybody else. Everybody wants to tell them how to think. This is what you should be thinking about as you step into this new part of your life. What would you say to those students now? What's a piece of advice that you would give them?
I think that the opportunities that they have going forward are huge. And what I've said to students frequently is keep your options open. Don't foreclose opportunity prematurely.
That can be practical in terms of employment, but also can be just in terms of how you think, right?
Exactly.
Keep your options open.
Absolutely right. Because you will often be surprised by opportunities and you have to be ready to seize them. But I really do think that just from a kind of demographic point of view, the labor force is going to be shrinking, birth rates have been declining. People who are graduating today, yes, it might be a difficult few months or maybe a year, but the kinds of long-term opportunities that they have, I think, are really unlimited and extremely exciting. I would also say how lucky they are to be living in a country like Canada, which increasingly stands out on the global stage as a kind of island of stability, civility, of openness, and I hope it is a place that remains open for some time to come.
glad to have you here this morning. Congratulations on your term as president, and we'll look forward to whatever you do next.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a real pleasure.
Merrick Gertler is the outgoing president of the University of Toronto. Well, coming up after your regional update.
Given that so many of us get our news from social media, the potential for fake AI-generated images circulating could skew our reality.
We were talking about artificial intelligence and what grads are going to be facing. The rise of AI continues to be one of the biggest stories of our times. The CBC's senior technology reporter, Nora Young, has been playing around with some of the tools. She'll talk about how to use AI, from chatbots to sites that allow you just to create a video with dialogue from a simple prompt. What could possibly go wrong? We'll tell you about that coming up, and we'll also speak about a student's half-century journey to cross the convocation stage. It's coming up in 90 seconds. I'm Matt Galloway. You're listening to The Current. Stay with us.
CBC Radio 1 in northwestern Ontario. I'm Olivia Lebec in the Thunder Bay newsroom. An employee at the Matson mine in Red Lake was fatally injured yesterday. Red Lake Gold Mines confirmed the incident in a news release issued Monday afternoon. It says the employee was working underground Monday morning when they were fatally injured. Operations have been voluntarily suspended at the mine. Company officials say they're working closely with local and Ministry of Labor authorities, and an investigation is underway. And despite yesterday's rainfall through parts of the northwest, the forest fire hazard remains high near the Manitoba border. The region's largest fire, called Red Lake 12, has forced the evacuation of Sandy Lake and Deer Lake First Nations in recent weeks. In a report issued yesterday, officials say that fire area saw minimal rainfall Monday, but the fire perimeters closest to Deer Lake and Sandy Lake have not seen any recent growth or further movement towards the communities. And taking a quick look at the weather across the northwest, today mainly cloudy skies with a 40 to 60% chance of some showers this afternoon and a risk of a thunderstorm in the western part of the region. Temperature highs today ranging between 21 and 26 degrees, but cooler along the North Shore and in the Greenstone area, with temperature highs ranging between 18 and 22 degrees. And that's a brief look at news and weather from CBC Thunder Bay.
Hello again, I'm Matt Galloway, and you're listening to The Current.
49 years later, we are thrilled to invite our most recent graduate in the Bachelor of Science in Agriculture with his new degree, Dave Burnett.
Yes, you heard that right. Dave Burnett started his degree 49 years ago at the University of Guelph in Ontario. Last week, he finally walked across the stage and accepted his Bachelor of Science degree. Dave started his agricultural program back in 1976, but life, as you know, doesn't always go as planned. Dave Burnett joins us now. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for inviting me on.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
What was it like hearing your name called on that stage?
Well, I wasn't expecting when they called my name to stop the program and give me a standing ovation. It was sort of, I guess, at that point that the whole thing started to dawn on me. It's been such a long journey that, I never really thought about the ending. And it wasn't until sometime in May that I checked my grades and realized that I was done. It's still catching up with me a little bit.
I can hear. Yeah, it's right in your voice. Take me back just briefly to 1976. You started your degree at the University of Guelph. What were you studying?
Agriculture at that point. The challenge in 76, it was the 1970s, and I didn't want to be in university. That decision was sort of made by people around me, by my high school teachers due to my grades, extremely high grades. But at the end of the day, I just didn't want to be there.
So you dropped out?
I dropped out after about not quite a year.
What happened after you dropped out? Because that's a huge part of this story. It's not as though you dropped out and then simply picked that back up. That life, as we said, unfolded in that time.
Yes, well, at the beginning of a journey, that was the beginning of a journey. I call it the rabbit hole of addiction. Over the next 20 years, a series of jobs, life. Some of it's kind of fuzzy today, but 20 years later, a family friend showed up one day, and I didn't know what day of the week it was. Really didn't sort of care, and the next thing I knew after his visit is they're talking me into rehab, and that was the beginning of the actual, what I'm going to call the journey forward.
And you've been sober since then?
Yes, I was sober 31 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
As you go through that, you decide at some point in time, you know what, maybe I should pick up that education piece. Tell me about that, because you had a conversation in some ways with the school about picking up where you left off, right?
Yes. Initially, when 31 years ago, I was essentially a school dropout. I was unemployable, all of the usual stuff we affiliate with addiction. And there were things in life that I wanted to do that were going to require me to have a degree. Goals and plans, and so I was basically starting from scratch building. The university welcomed me back. I hadn't burned my bridges there. I burned a lot of bridges in life, but I hadn't burned that particular bridge. So I went back. It was the next 25 years were a struggle between the practical basis of life and paying tuition, because in that, to today, what I paid for tuition for a whole term is what it cost me today for
receive recurring automated marketing messages from my Q-Bar message. New plan numbers required to apply available at p.qbar.com/policy/terms of service. Most protein bars are packed with sugar, carbs, and unpalatable ingredients.
What was it like? You said that you have blue jeans that are older than some of the people that you were with in class. What was it like at 68? You're 68 now. What is it like going back into the classroom with people who are that much younger than you?
It was absolutely wonderful. A couple things I'm aware of today. The blue jeans comment. I had walked into a biochemistry lecture here. The university thought they would do me a favor. I had taken in 76 a chemistry course, so I came back at Christmas. So it would have been like the second course of the series, and I'm looking around. Almost 6 weeks into the term before I realized the professor wasn't speaking in Latin. Friends and mentors told me that I would struggle with some of the pure science courses going back like that, but they said when you get into your fourth year, you'll shine. Life experience will start to pay off, and that's exactly what happened.
Your professor said that your passion and drive were inspiring. Okay. What does it mean to hear that?
I really wasn't expecting his comments. He was the one that supervised my research course, which was the final one that I took, and that just blew me away. Because he had been critical to realize that he late on my research project, and we took it apart about 3 times, and there were some nights that I didn't exactly call him a nice person. Like, God, I gotta do this again. But in the end, it all paid off, and a lot of the sort of circumstance, both the professors know since from 5 different professors, very positive, very encouraging. I've got a couple of them asking me now to consider graduate school. The jury's still out on that. My wife is saying, don't you dare. And my baby sister is goading me on. So I don't know. I don't know what lies ahead.
I'm going to let you go, but this is really emotional for you. And I just wonder, and you're here at that finish line. What does it mean to you?
All the way through recovery, I've got to make I guess I realized when I look back that I earned that. One of the things in recovery is that you don't think you're worthy. And just, it is still emotional.
You're worthy and some. I mean, you managed this, and you've earned it over time, and it's a remarkable story. And you're going to be a point of inspiration for a lot of other people as well, Dave.
Yeah, well, I had a cousin. I heard from one of my relatives the other day, and he's in his 50s. He never finished at McGill, and my answer to him is, it's never too late.
We should remember that, all of us. Congratulations, Dave. It's a real pleasure to talk to you.
Yes. And somebody said something the other day about going back to school or further. I said, it's more fun than Sudoku.
I think maybe there are people who would wonder about that, but we'll take your word for it. Dave, congratulations again. It's really good to talk to you. In the world of artificial intelligence, whether it's sophisticated research tools or realistic video, AI isn't just getting better, but more and more people are actually using it, including Nora Young. She is the CBC's senior technology reporter with the Visual Investigations Unit. Nora, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start, there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with text. Yeah, the big ones that people can actually use right now.
I mean, this is probably what most people have played with a little bit, ChatGPT. Also other big players, Microsoft has Copilot, Google Gemini, a company called ambient. A lot of people. And as you know, these things can hallucinate or make things up, and that's because they don't really have an actual understanding of the world around them the way that you and I do. So you do need to double check, especially important info. But now, they can actually look at sources online and cite those sources. But Google Gemini included music artists, so that's the point that we need to be thankful about. We're asking them and they're kind of answering. Most people seem to say Picasso. Most bots seem to say Picasso.
Are they different? I mean, you've Claude, and then there's ChatGPT. Like, why would somebody choose one over the other?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is tone and user interface. Like the most recent iteration of ChatGPT has been called. It kind of depends on what you use it for. If you want it to turn out a report of some kind, Google Gemini is good at laying out its rationale or its research plan and letting you kind of tweak that. But if you want to use a chatbot for like self-reflection, maybe you want a new career or something, you might want something that presents a little more empathetically. So if you're new to these things, I'd encourage you to experiment and see what fits your needs, with the proviso that you should check the policies around the use of your data for training data, because there's stuff that you may want to opt out of.
So I wanted to have this conversation with you because I wanted to talk about using AI right now. You've been playing around with some of this stuff. I mean, what has impressed you? We'll get through some of the other parts of this, but with the text stuff, what has impressed you?
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, you might have this sort of water cooler conversations over the couple of months, and we were thinking about like, you know, one thing is citation thing is an important piece.
So that's the information part of it, and the text part of it. AI image generation has been the subject of great discussion and debate. Where do we have it?
For years ago, we might have been talking about, oh, the hand has 17 fingers or whatever, and that's not really happening much more. There's Journey, there's Runway, which was used in film, everything everywhere all at once. Physical space, but the latest thing that people are super excited about is Google's video generator.
I don't know that it's particularly sophisticated, but that is these things that people have done.
Yeah, I mean, obvious addition here is that you can now type out dialogue and it'll translate it into very realistic speech. So just to give you a sense of emotional, it's just a snippet of a speech about Grizzle's own sailor.
This ocean is a force, a wild, untamed might. She commands your awe with every breaking light.
Now obviously they picked a particularly good example since it's Google's promotional video, but still, like, that's something that somebody typed in and that comes out.
So explain how that works for people who are used to type in, not just the dialogue, but you type in what you want the thing to, what you want the new film to be.
Yes, and this is the interesting point about using these things, is it's not just, you know, make me a movie of the Old Man and the Sea or whatever. You have to think about how these things work and how you translate what you may be visually into written words that you can then share with it. And you can get better at these things. You can get better at
for a video of a piano rolling down a hill in San Francisco, when everything else in San Francisco is that, and they made that with people chasing the piano.
generating clips of TV news anchors. With apologies to our friends at CBC TV News, there is a format for TV news, right? And
Sit in front of the desk.
potential to generate a realistic clip of a news anchor. Think about politics, for example. I think we're all at the playing with it stage right now, but what I often think of is we're going to be using all of this computational power and all of this energy power. If you've asked Siri or Alexa to play a song or dealt with a chatbot or a customer service site, it's basically an AI that can interact with the world and accomplish some kind of task with some degree of independence. So already, if I ask Gemini to create a resume for me and it goes out and cobbles that together from my LinkedIn profile and my personal website and